Hey, PreCalc crew, we are starting Unit 1. So here we go. We're starting with an intro to graphing. In your textbook on page 70, there's a little matching activity for you to do, match the equation with its graph. So certainly you want to take some time to be able to identify what a circle equation would look like, and an equation of a parabola, and a line, etc. I'll put a resource on our course website for you in case you're struggling with that first activity, but the answers are here for you. Okay, and we're going to move in to working with some equations today. So first and foremost, we will use the midpoint formula, a little blast from the past, I'd say. The midpoint formula is the average of the x's and the average of the y's. So, let me go back here. So we're going to add the x's together, divide by 2, and we're going to add our y values together and divide by 2. So there's our midpoint formula. The middle point, the average point. There we go. So let's practice that formula here. You can pause me and try it, and I will put down the answers. And you can check, see how you do. I personally like to put my points right on top of each other. So that way I don't match an x with an y and vice versa. So that when they're lined up vertically like this, it really helps me. So I'm going to add the 6 in the middle, divided by 2. And I'm going to add the negative 1 in the 5 and divide by 2. Okay. All right. So continuing on to simplify this, my midpoint is going to be 7.5. Or you can write 7.5. Or you can write 15 halves. Next up, working with fractions, don't be scared. Okay, I'm going to put my other point right underneath here so I can see my x's and my y's lined up vertically. Okay, I'm going to add the negative 1/2 plus 5 halves divided by 2. And I'm going to add my 3 and my 3 and divide by 2. What's negative 1/2 plus 5 halves? Yeah, 4 halves, right? What's 4 halves? 2, yeah? 2 divided by 2, 1. 6 divided by 2, 3. All right, so there's a little review on midpoint. Let's go on. So now we're going to write an equation of a circle using our midpoint formula on some of these examples. Do you guys recall what the equation of a circle is in standard form? I'm going to start writing it. Maybe you can finish it. Remember this? Derived from Pythagorean theorem? Okay. So we have an H here and a K here and an R. What do the H, K, and R stand for? The HK is the center and the R is the radius. Okay. One thing you want to know about identifying the center when it is in standard form is you always consider the signs opposite. So if this is x minus h, the center is h minus k, would just be k. So opposite signs. So whatever they appear to be in the equation, they're opposite. Okay. So in this example, if we want to line up x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, we can see that the h is just a 2. Although when you look at it quick, it looks like a minus 2, so I just caution you there. So the h is a 2. Now, this y matches up, but this doesn't match up. That's a minus and that's a plus. How did it become a plus? It was a minus a negative, right? So that k value is a negative 4. Although it looks like a positive 4, In standard form, in this equation, you want to think opposite signs. So that's my h, that's my k. Let's plot that here. All right, go over to the right 2, down 4, and there's my center. Now, to find the other points around the circle, we need to know the radius, the length from the center to a point on the circle. We see that the 9 matches up with the r squared. So if r squared is equal to 9, what is our radius? Take the square root, and our radius is 3. So from our center, we count up 3, put a point, we count to the right 3, put a point, down 3, and left 3. And then try your best to sketch a circle there. Voila. All right, let's go on to a little bit of a tougher problem here. I would recommend sketching this out, but we have to write an equation of a circle. So whenever I see equation of a circle, I stop, I process, and I write down the standard form. I also highlight the pieces that need to be replaced in this equation. I need to know what the h is, the k is, and the r. The x and the y represent all the points around the circle. Okay, so those stay x and y. All right, so write the equation of a circle with endpoints 1, 4, and 3, 6. So if you want to just do a little sketch. We have endpoints 1, 4, and 3, 6. There's the diameter, passes through the center. How would I find the HK given this information? If we take a look here at this diameter, this is the middle point of that diameter, which is also our center. So when we need to find our center, we use the midpoint formula. So I'm going to just jot that down for you. Use the midpoint formula to help us find our center, our HK. All right, so let's do this. Let's add the 1 and the 3. 1 plus 3, and divide by 2. And let's add our y values. 4 plus 6, divide by 2. And we get our center. Our HK is going to be 2, 5. That's our H, that's our K. So we have this piece and this piece of the puzzle. We still need the R, the radius. The radius is a length. Distance helps us determine that. So the radius is the distance from the center to one of the points. So it doesn't matter which point you pick here. I'm going to pick the 3 and the 6. So I have my center here, 2, 5, and I want to find the distance from this point to that point. You guys recall the distance formula? The distance formula will help us find our radius. The distance formula is the radius will equal the difference of the x's squared, so 3 minus 2 squared, plus the difference of your y's squared, and make sure you are consistent with the order, so 6 minus 5 squared. And then you simplify what's in parentheses. We have a 1 in both of those parentheses. When we square them, we get 1. So we have r equals square root of 2. So if the radius is the square root of 2, what's the radius squared? Well, if we square this side, we have to square this side, and those are inverse operations, so our radius squared is 2. So we have all of the information now, we just plug it in, and we're done. So let's plug it in. I'm going to write it right up here, okay? So we have x minus 2 squared. Notice that the h is 2, but in the formula, it looks like a minus 2. Plus y minus 5 squared equals our r squared is 2. And there we have it. All right. let's go on to the last question, or the last two questions. Here we go. So this one is kind of the same problem. So I want you to try this one right now. Okay? Pause it and then start it up when you want to check your work. All right. Any questions on that, please? Okay, so that's our h and our k. Last step is we need to find our r squared. We use the distance to find the length of our radius. Radius is of length. Okay. Now, if you wanted to sketch a picture, I'd advise that. You can pick either of these points along with the center point. I'm not going to pick the 2 and the 3 just because I already have a 2 and a 3 here, and I don't want to get really confused. So I'm going to pick the 4 and the 7, -7. And so my radius will be the difference of those x's, 4 minus 3 squared. Now, order has to be consistent, but it doesn't matter which one you start with, either the 4 or the 3. Doesn't matter, just as long as you're consistent. So since I started with the 4, when I found the difference of my x's, I need to start with the -7 for the difference of my y's. Now this can get a little tricky because we got a whole bunch of negatives happening there. So we have 4 minus 3 squared plus -7 minus a -2 squared. So that turns to a plus. Okay, let's keep going here. So we have 1 in parentheses squared plus -7 plus 2 is a -5 squared. And I want to caution you here. Make sure you keep this in parentheses if you plan to use your calculator, because a -5 squared without the parentheses can tell you it's a -25, which is certainly not the case. You should never get a negative underneath this radical when we're working with a distance. So we have 1 plus 25, which is radical 26. So if the radius equals radical 26, the radius squared equals 26. So we have the h, the k, and the r squared. We're going to plug that all in, and we can be done. I'm going to put it right at the top if I can squeeze it in. So we have x minus 3 squared plus, let me have you think about this one. What do we do with that? We don't write y minus a -2, we put plus 2 squared equals 26. There it is. Equation of a circle. All right, last problem. This one's an easier one, but it throws in a vocab word, tangent. Do you know what that means? It touches the y-axis at one point. So I'm going to sketch a little x and y axis here, and I'm going to plot that center point. I'm going to go over to the left -2 and then up 3, and there is my center. If the circle touches the y-axis, then I know that it has to touch here. And now I can determine what my radius is. What's this distance? 1, 2. The radius is 2. So there it is. We have our HK and we have our R, so let's just plug it in. X plus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 2 squared, which is 4. All right. Happy homework time. Remember, the answer key is posted, so check your work along the way, give yourself some immediate feedback, and see how you do with it.